Something major is unfolding behind the scenes with the Minnesota Vikings right now, and most fans still don't realize how big this moment could become for the future of the franchise. While everybody's paying attention to the schedule release, primetime rumors, and excitement about the upcoming season, inside the organization there's an entirely different battle happening, one that could define the Vikings for years to come. Because this general manager search suddenly feels a lot deeper than simply replacing one executive. This feels like the Vikings trying to decide what kind of organization they truly want to be moving forward. So let's analyze all of this in detail. Be sure to click the like button and tell me in the comments, how long have you been a Vikings fan? We have fans of all ages, and that's amazing. The latest information coming out of the team is that the GM search has accelerated significantly over the last few days. Multiple candidates have already gone through Zoom interviews, and the expectation is that the process will continue into early June with in-person interviews for finalists happening after Memorial Day. That already tells you the Vikings are taking this extremely seriously. They are not rushing toward a quick hire. They understand how important this decision is, especially after everything that happened over the last several years with roster construction, draft struggles, and internal communication issues. But here's the detail that should really grab the attention of Vikings fans. Kevin O'Connell is heavily involved in this process, not just sitting in the room quietly. His opinion reportedly carries major weight during these interviews. And honestly, that says everything about how ownership currently views the structure of this franchise. The Vikings clearly see O'Connell as the central figure moving forward. They believe in him long-term, and now they're trying to find somebody in the front office who aligns with him completely. And once you start looking at the names involved in this search, the pattern becomes obvious. Several of the candidates have direct connections to O'Connell from previous stops around the NFL. There are executives tied to his time with the Rams, with Washington, and with San Francisco. That's not random. The Vikings are clearly prioritizing chemistry and collaboration this time around. After the breakdown in communication that reportedly existed during previous regimes, the organization seems determined to avoid repeating those same mistakes. But the biggest storyline in all of this revolves around one name: Rob Brzezinski. Inside the building, Rob is viewed as one of the most respected people in the entire organization. He has spent years helping manage contracts, salary cap situations, and roster structure. He reportedly passed on opportunities elsewhere to remain loyal to the Vikings, and there's a growing belief that ownership values him enormously. The fascinating part is that Rob doesn't fit the same profile as the other candidates being interviewed. Most of the other names come from heavy scouting and personnel backgrounds, traditional football evaluators, guys deeply connected to player personnel departments and talent evaluation systems across the league. Rob is different. That's why this situation has become so complicated behind the scenes. There's now serious discussion about whether the Vikings could potentially elevate Rob into some kind of president role while pairing him with a scouting-heavy general manager underneath him. Even though ownership previously hinted they may avoid that kind of layered structure, the idea reportedly still makes a lot of sense internally because of how respected Rob is throughout the organization. And honestly, from the outside looking in, you can understand why this is such a difficult decision. Because if the Vikings completely bypass Rob after everything he's done for the organization, there's legitimate concern about damaging an important relationship internally. The feeling around the situation is that ownership may not want to risk upsetting someone viewed as such a valuable part of the franchise culture. At the same time, the football side of this conversation can't be ignored either. The Vikings' drafting over the last several years has been heavily criticized, and there's growing acknowledgement that the organization simply hasn't developed enough young talent consistently. That's one of the biggest reasons why the roster became so expensive recently. When draft picks fail to become impact starters, teams are forced into aggressive free agency spending to fill holes all over the roster. And now, the Vikings are trying to financially reset things heading into the future. That's why this GM search matters so much more than people realize. This isn't just about hiring a new executive. This is about fixing the entire pipeline of roster construction moving forward. One of the biggest questions now is how much authority the next GM will actually have. If the Vikings bring in one of these respected assistant general managers from other organizations, will that person truly have the power to reshape scouting departments, personnel systems, and evaluation processes? Or will parts of the structure remain protected internally? Because if you're bringing in a new football executive, that person is naturally going to want the ability to make major changes if necessary. And that's where this story becomes fascinating for Vikings fans. Ownership clearly values leadership and collaboration. That's been repeated constantly throughout this process. But at the same time, they also desperately need better drafting, better player development, and better long-term roster sustainability. Finding someone who checks every one of those boxes may be the hardest challenge this organization has faced in years. And then, as all of this front office drama continues behind the scenes, schedule rumors started leaking out. And if even half of these reports are accurate, the Vikings could be walking into one of the toughest opening stretches imaginable. The reports already circulating strongly suggest Minnesota will face Chicago on the road in Week 2, play San Francisco and Mexico City later in the season, travel to New England for Thursday Night Football in December, and close the year against Chicago at home. But then the really interesting rumors started appearing. There's growing speculation that the Vikings could open the season at home against Green Bay in Week 1. Just think about that atmosphere for a second. Packers versus Vikings immediately out of the gate. No easing into the season. No soft opening matchup. Straight into division football with massive early implications for the NFC North. And the rumored stretch doesn't stop there. Other speculation points toward road games against Tampa Bay early in the season, a home matchup with Miami shortly after, and even a Monday Night Football showdown against Buffalo later in the year. If those reports turn out to be true, the Vikings would immediately be tested against quarterbacks like Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, Baker Mayfield, and potentially Josh Allen within the first half of the season. That's a serious challenge for Brian Flores' defense right away. At the same time, there's also relief internally about avoiding certain late-season weather situations. Some of the rumored scheduling could help Minnesota avoid brutal cold-weather divisional road games deep into December, which absolutely matters over the course of a playoff race. And, quietly, another interesting detail emerged from rookie minicamp. One rookie defensive tackle reportedly looked significantly more athletic and explosive than expected during early practices. Coaches and observers were impressed by his conditioning and movement skills almost immediately. That may not seem like a huge headline right now, but these are exactly the kinds of under-the-radar developments that become important later in the season once injuries and rotations start affecting the defensive front. And when you step back and look at everything happening simultaneously, you can feel the pressure building around this organization. The GM search, the future power structure, the financial adjustments, the need for better drafting, the difficult schedule, the long-term commitment to Kevin O'Connell. All of these storylines are connected now. This doesn't feel like a normal off-season anymore. It feels like the Vikings are entering one of the most important transitional periods the franchise has faced in a very long time. And the decisions made over these next several weeks could ultimately determine whether this team finally becomes a legitimate Super Bowl contender, or continues searching for answers yet again. Now I want to know your opinion, Vikings fans. Do you believe the franchise is finally making the right decisions to build a championship team, or are there still many hidden problems behind the scenes? Comment below because this discussion promises to get very heated in the coming weeks. Go Vikings!